I do remember her coming to my parents' house multiple times trying to get me to come back to work. I do believe I probably sat out of work maybe a good month, maybe.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be back in that place again. So fast forward to my sister that I just lost. I knew I didn't want to go back in that dark space, but I had to keep using my faith and what I knew that God was going to pull me out of to help me to stay out of it. And it was hard. It's hard because I trained Charlie. Charlie was, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
I think just like my sister was like a mother to me, I felt at times that Charlie was my child.
Listen, grief doesn't have to be grim. That's why when I talk about it on this podcast, it's about dealing with grief and loss in a way that influences the changes you want to make in your life. As you heal, what do you want to do next? Make a professional pivot, end a toxic relationship or friendship? I want you to have the confidence to navigate change. These are real stories from my one-on-one coaching sessions and my inspiring interviews with change makers. I'm Marcia Cork, the change coach, and this is Ooh, Those Effing C Words.
Hello, 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 MCs. Welcome back to another episode of Ooh, Those Effing C Words. I am truly in the company of a legend today, the legendary celebrity hairstylist, Shirley Gordon. Yes, before reality TV made its way to the DMV and made, some of our public figures, local celebrities, we already had Shirley. Shirley was already known nationwide for her artistry. Her career is a lot like the avant-garde hairstyles and wigs that she's known for. Yes, they are audacious. They command our attention, and they are beyond anything that we could ever imagine for ourselves, right? So I reached out to Shirley to continue my series of conversations for the Get You Out of My Hair campaign effort. You remember I created this campaign to demonstrate the intimate relationship that forms between client and stylist, and how we often dump on each other, right? And so the goal of this campaign is to have stylists use that dynamic and their platform to encourage grief support and mental and emotional wellness. I kicked off that series a few episodes ago with Dawn, my hairstylist. She talked about her toxic relationships. And so this conversation today with Shirley is timely in so many ways because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but May also marks 1 year since Shirley lost her sister and brother-in-law, her sister's husband, in a very public accident here in the DMV area, just so close to home. So none of us is spared from hardship and loss. My condolences go out to you, of course, Shirley, but I'm so thankful to you for just being willing to be here today to talk about that, but then also to talk about mental health and wellness, the importance of expression, the conflicted feelings that we can feel. You have a life that just forces you to live out loud and still have these successes, but know that you're grieving behind the scenes. So I appreciate you being here to tell this story. So welcome to the show. And thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
You look amazing.
Oh, thanks.
I knew you would.
Thank you. I'm a little hard on myself at times. I'm not really thinking I'm looking that great today, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, you are definitely looking amazing, which is making me that much more aware of my lighting, but we're just going to go with it. It's all right. So what do you think about this concept? I love that you agreed so quickly. So I'm thankful that you, see the benefit of it. So tell me about this concept to Get You Out of My Hair campaign, using that relationship between stylist and client. What would you like to do with it? What would you like the people who sit in your chair to walk away from, after this conversation?
Oh, God, there's so many things. I mean, being a hairstylist of so many years, I think I've heard and pretty much seen it a lot. I've probably seen it all. Yeah. I guess when my clients come in my chair, I want them to feel like I'm definitely there to give them a service of hair and make them feel good about themselves, but I also want them to know it's a safe space for them to let
Yes.
me know how they feel, because I mean, we all are living in the same crazy world of going through ups and downs and life challenges. And I'm here. I'm here for them to hear and to listen and to give my feedback. And, maybe I have a story for them that can help them get out of these situations.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that, like I said, with the dynamic between my stylist and I, we were going through hardships together. So she's sharing she's giving just as much as she's getting, and getting just as much as she gives. And so I know that that's probably the dynamic that you have with your
Absolutely.
clients as
Absolutely.
well.
Mm-hmm.
We hear just as much about you through Robin
Yeah.
as probably happens the same way in your
Yeah.
world. This friendship that transcends just
Mm-hmm.
the client stylist relationship.
Absolutely.
So it's a safe space. It's also where we're comfortable, because we develop this intimacy, that common ground that establishes over years of working with someone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting, like, why I use that as an example for conveying the relationship that can also occur between yourself and your grief support specialist, or yourself and a therapist. We don't really see the similarities,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And so I think this is a good way of introducing the concept, introducing the idea of expression in a safe space. Lay that framework, give it real time and attention, and be just as vulnerable and transparent with a support specialist as you are with these stylists.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And they are transparent. They are very transparent. And
yes.
I'm known to be very transparent and very verbal. So they get exactly what they're going to get from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then you also absorb that too. So we have to be careful about that. That you are
it's
also
heavy. It can be heavy.
Very heavy, and probably stories and incidents that have occurred in their life that you wish you could have more of an impact on. You wish that you could help them walk away from a situation. You wish that they would take more action. Maybe they dump it on you, but then not taking action. And so there's also work to be done after the conversation. So thank you for being willing to use your platform to convey these messages.
Oh, you're welcome. Sure. I get great pleasure out of that. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
Just to be able to hear, so many people think that they're alone with a lot of the things that they go through in life. And to be able to hear that, oh my God, Shirley said that she had that same experience, so it makes me feel a lot better. So, because you're constantly beating yourself all the time, like, why me? Or am I the only one going through this? But when you start sharing and talking about it with other people, and if you're in that safe space where you can do it, and I think they leave out feeling a lot better. I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, I want to give all of these topics the time and attention they deserve, but we have to start off with your just remarkable career. All of the applause and accolades you've gotten over the years, the Beyonce cover, Vogue. We know about your relationship with Robin Dixon, but then also Chaka Khan, Venus Williams, Venus and Serena Williams.
Yeah, way back. Dominique Dawes.
Dominique Dawes. You've done
way
work
back.
on the BET Awards, Black Girls Rock. First Black woman to win the North American Hairstylist Awards.
Yeah.
And, these are big deals that we see your profile, we see the fabulosity that exists on Instagram, but there's just so much that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know, because we're not in that world.
Right.
But yeah, your career is remarkable. So talk about that. I would love to hear how that started, because, I mentioned earlier, larger than life, but maybe larger than even you imagined for yourself. I don't know.
Maybe.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's funny you said larger than life, and something that I didn't imagine for myself, because my career started with my father. My father, I wanted to be a fashion stylist or a fashion guru, like dressing celebrities, or even thought about, going to FIT, creating my own fashion line. But then my father had this brochure, and he just came in the house one day and was like, no, you're going to beauty school. And I'm like, I don't want want to go to beauty school. He was like, I said, well, I want to go to school for fashion. And he was like, no, fashion and hair goes together. I see you do your sisters. You're going to go to beauty school. I'm going to take you on Saturday. So that's how my career started. So I went to this beauty school, small beauty school in Rockville, Maryland.
Okay.
I was the only African-American there. And it was a great school, but they taught me the fundamentals to go on and get my license. But the rest was something that my father saw in me at a younger age, playing with dolls, playing with my sister's hair, having people come over and getting their hair done on the weekends.
Okay.
He saw that I had a gift before I knew I had a gift.
Wow.
So it's not always what you want to do for your life. Sometimes it's somebody around you that might see something in you that you don't see for yourself.
Absolutely.
And in my case, my father was the one that saw hair. When I tell you he found my beauty school, he found my first salon that I worked at, and I was there for 11 years at Kelly Harem. Loved Miss Kelly. She taught me the ropes of hair. I owe everything to her, because she took me in when I didn't even have a license. And I tried to tell my father that. I was like, well, I can go for the interview, but I don't have my license yet. And he was like, oh, hell, they're gonna hire you when they see what you can do. That was just my father's way of saying things. So it was so funny hearing her tell me how he came into her salon and was looking around. And he was like, well, I have a daughter I want to bring in for an interview. And she was like, okay, then we can set that up. And he was like, you look like you need, liven this place up a little bit. And she's the one that can do it. So I had the interview. She hired me on the spot. I used one of my sisters, cut all her hair off, hired me on the spot. And I was like, but I don't have a license yet. And she was like, oh, you let me worry about that. So I worked for her for 11 years. And then I opened up Strands Hair Studio. Now I've had for going on 31 years.
Same location?
Same location, Wheaton, Maryland. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So that's always one of the questions I ask. Who was an early influencer? Who was someone
my dad, my father was
nurtured? That is impressive. So where was your mother in this? How did she feel about?
My mother was like, of course, she knew that my father was right. She knew hair was, where I should have been. Okay. So she was 100% behind him. And he just charted that course for me. And he even found Strands Hair Studio in Wheaton, Maryland. He found this space and he was like, I found this space for you. There used to be a hair salon. He was like, I'll do some little things in there. Because my dad was really good with his hands. He built our family house. He did a lot of construction and building work. So he did everything, got the salon ready, moved me in, and
wow,
the rest is history. And then probably 3 years after owning Strands 1, I opened up Strands 2 in Columbia, Maryland. For 15 years, I owned that salon, which is where my sister Charlie managed for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so now, did I read that correctly? You're one of 12?
I'm one of 12. Yes.
Okay. So that's very similar. So my mom is one of 12.
Yeah.
And so you have what? 8 girls?
7 girls, 5 boys.
7 girls, 5 boys. So we have 8 boys, 4 girls.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a dynamic very much like that. So I'm one of the grands, but of course, in a family that size, some of the grands are relatively the same age as the younger siblings.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's how I grew up. Some of the younger siblings are more like siblings to me than uncles and aunts. So very similar dynamics. So when I read that, I was like, wow. Yeah, the similarities there. So was he just as active in nurturing their skills and talents as well, shaping?
Well, my dad was, both of my parents were firm believers in, if you have a skill, use that skill. But what you can't do is to stay home and not do anything. Yeah. So they weren't really heavy in pushing you to college. They were more like, find something that you love, make the best out of it, and do it. To watch my father grow up, me growing up, watching my father having 20 jobs, I feel like at one time, like never in the house because he's constantly was working and always there providing for us.
Okay.
If I wasn't a hard worker, then there would be a problem because my mom was the hard worker inside the house. My father was the hard worker on the outside of the house. Okay. So I get a lot of my traits from my parents because I am always on the grind. Like I'm a hard worker, but I don't really feel like I'm hardworking because I love what we do.
Okay. Yeah, so that hustler spirit, that hard work mentality is definitely ingrained in you.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Okay, so he already knew you were a star.
He already knew I was a star.
So
He would
tell me
tell
about the
everybody he could that had ears, he would tell everybody about his daughter who's doing all these famous people.
did the celebrity clientele already exist while you were working with her, or did that all happen after you started your studio?
Well, when I started my studio, so when I was working with her, we did a lot of hair shows and stuff together. So she introduced me to that whole world of hair shows and going to hair shows and furthering your education, making sure that you stay up on the trends. That was all her. And I definitely took that, and I still do that today in my career. Like, I'm always big on the trends, always going to a class somewhere, whether it's here in the States or out of the States. I want to know the latest and the greatest in hair because I need to master it in order for me to share different looks with my clients and just different things for me to do, like in the whole hair world. I have to be good at it. So I knew that I was going to be that type of stylist. So, then the celebrity clientele, it was just like word of mouth, I guess, had to be, because I didn't really go searching for it at that time, because I was definitely that stylist that wanted to stay in the salon. My first 10, 15 years, I started getting that itch, probably 15 years, like, okay, I think I want to do something different. I want to start doing hair shows, and I want to work for companies, and I want to like be platform artists, and I want to win awards. So that's kind of how that manifest.
Platform artist, what's that? Explain that.
So platform artist is working for a company. I worked for Clairol first for 11 years as a platform artist. And that's when you're having your big shows all around the world, and you work for that company, and you're the artist that comes out on stage, and you're sharing the latest and the greatest stuff that's going on in the Clairol world. And then I went on and I worked for Wella. I remember being at a hair show one day, and I just was looking on stage of this beautiful color work on the stage, and I saw all these amazing people gathered around, and I was standing by a gentleman at the time. I didn't know who he was, but I just spoke out saying, I can do that. And then he looked at me and he said, well, let's do it. So that was Fabio. Fabio was someone who went into Wella, and the rest is history. I worked for Wella for like 6 years as a top educator, the first African-American to be on the Wella platform team. So that's another reason why I looked and I was like, gosh, this looks so great, but why is it so white? Where is the great African-American hairstylists? Why is the stage just like all white educators? So I was like, I want to work for Wella. So I did the interview with him. He wanted me to work for Sebastian. I wanted to work for Wella. No, I wanted to work for Sebastian. He wanted me to work for Wella because Wella was on the top tier. So I worked for Wella, won 3 major awards for colorists, international colorists, straight. So
so that's really what catapulted your career and gave you that visibility, is working for these very high profile, very recognizable names.
For sure.
Okay. So explain how that works then, because if you're working with Clairol and you're working with Wella, and you said for 11 years and 6 years respectively, how are you doing that and still operating out of your studio here?
Well, like I said, I'm my father's child, so we made it work. Whenever there are shows and stuff, that's usually on the weekends. So I would leave my salon on Saturdays or sometimes on Fridays, and you had like 2 days you had to prep for the show. And a typical hair show is Sunday, Mondays, and Tuesdays. So as long as I was there by Friday, then that weekend I did shows. And I was on a really tight regiment travel schedule back then. So it was a lot, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Because you got to see so many people.
Did they pay for your travel?
They paid for everything. They paid for everything. Yeah.
Okay, so that's also what helps make it possible then, because that seems like that could be really expensive back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. And you mentioned that this world was very white. Now, I know hair shows were still big, the Atlanta area and beyond, in the South, and that was Black. So you're doing that as well?
So when I was working for Clairol and Wella, you go to the same hair show. So it's we go to Garde Brother every year. We would do, I think it was another show that is in Chicago that was, good multicultural, but as a educator for a company, you want to see diversity. You want to see that they are looking to hire Black educators as well, because if you're going to have people on the stage, models represented, why not have the educators, be diverse? So we did the Bronner Brothers show for 11 years straight, like when I worked for Clairol. So I was there, I was on the stage. People tried to get me when they saw me on the Clairol stage, because they were like, oh my God, who's that sister up there? And we want her, your Dark Ladies and your, all the other companies that, African-American brands. But it was something about the passion of just being with Wella. And I think I wanted to show that I didn't really need to work for a Black company in order to show Black hair. I wanted to be on that white stage and be that Black stylist to stand out, so the younger generation can see that you can put yourself in different situations and you don't have to think in this little tight box that I'm only supposed to do the Black things with hair.
Yeah.
And I opened up the world of you can do whatever you want with hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that probably had a lot to do with how you took on this very public persona. Like I said, you were a celebrity in that before we, had celebrities here. Just your association with the top names, recognizable names.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that the difference? Is that the difference between someone who goes on to achieve this type of immeasurable success as a hairstylist versus, owning several shops perhaps in the area? You are well financially, just don't have that same level of visibility. Is that where that comes from? Is that where?
I think it definitely comes from that, and it also comes from knowing exactly what you want from hair and who you want to be. Like there are hairstylists that have 2 or 3 salons in the area, and they may never want to do platform work. That's just not their goal. Their goal is just to stay in the salon, create beautiful hairstyles on their clients, and they're completely 100% content with that. And I love it. And that was me for a little bit, but I knew that there was a bigger picture for me, because I knew when I looked through those magazines, I wanted to be that hairstylist that I saw, that, all these famous hairstylists around the world. I'm like, well, I want to be one of those people. So I wanted that and more. So I'm constantly always trying to jump for the next big thing.
Okay. And so you were interested in fashion initially. How did you bring those worlds together? Fashion.
Oh my God. My fashion world, I'm definitely going to do one day. I know I'm going to have something to do with fashion one day.
Okay.
But it, like my father said, it all goes together. So when I started getting into competition hair and creating these stories of how I was going to have these competition worlds meet with hair and fashion, you have to have all that together. So you need your good photography, your makeup, your fashion, your hair, and the story all comes together in order to show a look for competition world. So it all worked out, because I'm so involved with picking out the fashion every time I do a photo shoot.
If there's someone who wants to, be a hairstylist, but up the ante, level up, do something unique and different, is there a process that you recommend for making that happen?
Well, I definitely recommend, there's definitely a process, especially if you want to do competition work. So the biggest hairstyling award is the North American Hairdressing Award, which is what we consider our Oscars of hair.
Oscars of Grand,
Yes. So we call it NAHA, which stands for North American Hairdressing Awards. That award show has several categories, and you can enter in any category. I've entered in multiple categories over the years, and every year that I do it, I push myself to enter in something different. But that you would need to make sure that you're prepared to do a photo shoot, because you need to know what the judges are looking for. You need to know what type of work you need to make sure that you're doing. So you need to take time out a good couple months and really do a good storyboard on how to become a competition stylist and what you need to do to win.
Okay, competition stylist. See, you're using terminology
Yeah.
that most of us are not aware of. So this is what I
Yeah.
was saying. The knowing, me researching you and learning about Naha.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I would have never heard of otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So our listeners don't know this either.
Yeah.
But someone listening will want to pursue this and
Absolutely.
need
Absolutely.
to know where to start. Okay.
For somebody young coming out of beauty school, then I say get a great mentor and let that mentor guide you into the proper steps that you need to take to start competing. Because you don't want to put yourself out there and go enter Naha. Go to some of the smaller competitions first, like your Bronner Brother competitions, or some of the ones that are like, L'Oreal has a competition. Wella has a Trend Vision competition. So you want to do like baby competitions first and then like try to enter into your Naha competitions.
Okay.
I didn't do that, but it took me a minute to win the first awards because I just said, oh, I can do that. So I just entered.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've also had these years of experience of the platform.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a photo that gets submitted into the awards.
It's a photo that gets submitted into the North American Hairdressing Awards. And they have really strict rules. You have to follow those rules. The photography has to be on point. The makeup has to be on point. So you're getting judged. You're getting scored on a scale. And they're taking a little bit from each part of the competition. Okay. So if the fashion doesn't go with the hair, then you're going to get cut. If the lighting in the photograph is too dark, then it's not going to work.
So it's always you also have to be strategic then about who you align with for the fashion.
You have to have a proper team, yeah.
Okay.
And all of that costs a lot of money. It costs me a lot of money. I've invested a lot of money in being a hairstylist.
I can imagine. Yes. And how do those relationships form? Look, I'm really interested in this now. Yeah. Look, I'm asking questions that probably wouldn't have had. That I wouldn't have asked, but I'm interested. How do those relationships form with the makeup artists, with the fashion experts?
Just being in different settings. Like I've done fashion. I've done Fashion Week in New York. So I've met so many different makeup artists and different people. So along the way, I just kind of like, oh, okay, let me have your information. But makeup started here in DC for me. My first photo shoots, me and Derek Rutledge, we did probably 11 years worth of amazing photo work. With all of my shows, he was my go-to makeup artist. I never used another soul when I started doing all of the magazines, the DC magazines, all of the magazine work, our hair shows locally. It was always Derek right by my side. It was like me and Derek. He went with me everywhere. We were a team. And we actually both said that we wanted to do Oprah. He has Oprah now. And I am so happy for him. But he didn't take me along for the ride. So I'm a little mad. But it's okay. I forgave him. Because I'm a forgiving person.
Okay. All right. So this is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you start to attract celebrity clientele from this visibility?
Gosh, how do you start attracting? I guess it has to do with, right now Instagram is like huge. So that's like a big platform. Back when I was starting, I think it was probably my magazine work, like being in the Essence and, some of the other magazines that I might have been in, some of the ones way back in the day that I can't even think of their names, but Essence was probably one of the big ones. Doing work for that. And then just really like getting your name out there and just trying to meet other people that you may work with, like the BET world. That was big for me with doing some people because I would come in and do like some of the MCs and some of the hosts for BET. And then I would see other people and then you would meet people that way. And it's like, oh, that's Shirley, let her do your hair.
You get to you end up just kind of rubbing elbows with one another.
Yeah, you rub elbows with different people. Like, even in the hair world, like you're rubbing elbows with some of the great hairstylists that I look up to in my career. Like Vivian McKinder was one of my icons that I just needed to know everything she knew about hair because I just looked at her on stage and I'm just like, wow, this woman is a genius. And I've trained under her so many times over the years. And she's been behind me with like helping me grow with this whole Naha journey and a lot of the things that I've done.
So it almost doesn't even require any real pursuit from you to attract celebrity clients. they kind of make their way to you.
It really doesn't, because it's so funny, because whenever I go, and I say this, and to any young hairstylist that's listening that wants to be a hairstylist, and or that you are a hairstylist right now, I'm big about like educating, and I feel like that if you're going to come out of beauty school, and if you don't start with a good mentor right by your side, you should definitely be taking classes like monthly, learning more and more and more about hair. Because now the salon life is so different, because everybody's booth renting and everybody has their suites, and you don't have that community of stylists that are around you that you can look at and say, oh my God, I love what she's doing. Oh, let me find out how she did that cut or how she did that color. You're not in the salon with anybody anymore. You're just in this cubicle space with your client, and you're not seeing trends if you're not learning yourself. Where are you getting it from?
Technique.
Yeah, you have to yourself. Like my motto is always look for somebody who's doing better than me. So I'm not going to follow anybody who's not. I'm going to follow somebody who's way up there, because I want them to be just as high up as God. Because anybody I touch, I want to be that way.
Yeah,
I don't want to follow anybody that's on my playing field.
Yeah. So it will give you the visibility it needs, like you mentioned, social media now, but for longevity.
Yes, for longevity.
You really need that sense of community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Okay, so then what happened next? So you are rubbing elbows with the right people. You've already gotten, you have an amazing resume by this time, of course. So then what happens? What happens with the next several clients? And that still allows you to maintain this work? Do you need to travel with them ever? How does that work?
I haven't really had the opportunity to travel with one celebrity. And that's probably me, because I'm not putting myself, or I haven't put myself out there in that direction yet. At this point in my life, yes, I am ready to travel with a celebrity, or, if that's what it takes for me to work with them, or if they would offer me a position, I would probably say yes today. But in the past, I wasn't open enough. And because they knew that I worked with the different companies, a lot of celebrities, like big name celebrities, they want you to themselves. So if they know that you're working for LA and you're doing all these things, because I've heard over the years, like, oh, Shirley, your name came up with Oprah, or your name came up with this one, but they said you're too famous. Shirley's doing a lot of things with, other stuff. So she wouldn't be able to give me the time. And I can understand why they would feel that way, but I don't, because until you ask the person, you don't know.
Yeah. But that sounds a lot like what you were saying with the fashion world. No one, they feel like you will give, there will be preference, there will be styles and looks to the celebrity you favor. No one is going to get that same level of attention. It sounds very similar in that way.
Yeah. So I really think that now at a place in my life, I would do it, because I felt like that I had to get to these little steps along my journey of hair before I could say, okay, I will dedicate myself to one person, because that's a lot of work. And I am a creative being, so I need to be able to create on you. So it has to be the right person, the right canvas that's going to come to me and say, Shirley, can you be my number one girl? Because I want to be able to show creativity. I don't want to be able to just curl somebody's hair the same way every day and be happy with that. That would give me fulfillment at all.
Yeah, especially if you were already interested in the fashion world prior to that segue to hair. So that explains why the looks are so audacious, as I mentioned earlier. Did that come from the platform artistry, the platform work, or was that just innate? Was that something you always you just needed to up the ante in the hairstyling world?
Well, I do believe I needed to up the ante in the hairstyling world, especially in our African-American community, because I felt like it was just stuck at sometimes. And I felt like people were always afraid to push the box or to push the envelope and to make things bigger than life. And I am just that girl. I don't know if it's because I'm from a big family, but everything's got to be bigger than life. It's like, I just pushed the envelope. So if somebody said, no, you can't use that spray, then I'm like, well, I'm going to use that spray because I think it'll work. So I have to try things sometimes, and sometimes they fail, but I have to try it if I have a vision in my mind of how I want. So whenever I'm storing it out for a major photo shoot, I have to have, I'll do a whole mock series on mannequins and make sure every hairstyle is the way I want it to look. So when I go to these photo shoots, most of the time the photographers are so like impressed because they're like, do you have a team? And I'm like, well, I have one assistant that's with me. She's going to help me, where I need help, but I'm good. And they just don't envision it because they see people just come in and fumbling and putting their ideas together right on the site. And I just go boom, 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 boom.
Okay, so this is what sets you apart. So as you're telling me all this, I'm listening to it and thinking, okay, this is the standard. So this is what is done in the industry. But no, this is what sets you apart from everyone else.
Yeah, because you have to know the proper steps. Yeah.
And you said $20,000. That's how much you might invest.
Sometimes my shoots, I know my poor husband, he's like, are you doing Naha again this year? And I'm like, yeah. So it's like sometimes if I'm not being sponsored, then I'm going to pay anywhere between $20,000 and $25,000 just to do a nice shoot.
And do you get that back?
I get it back in some way, somehow. I'm praying to God one day that I get it back, but I think I've been blessed in ways that I've gotten it back through just my business growing or just people knowing my name and, just being out there in the hair world amongst big time hair artists. And they're like, oh yeah, we knew you. You're Shirley. You're this.
Gotcha.
You get it back sometimes in that way. You win a trophy if you win, but sometimes it's not always about, of course, I want the trophy, but it's not always about the trophy. It's just about me standing up on that platform, being an African-American stylist in this huge competition world where we're starting to get more African-American stylists to enter, but it's not very many of us.
Were there any racial barriers to your success, to getting this type of visibility? Any hardships? Any financial investments that backfired? Tell me about the hardships that you've had to navigate as well.
Well, I mean, of course I've had hardships navigating through this journey of hair. Especially the biggest hardship was going through COVID recently. That was a huge hardship for me and the salon, but I'm still there. So a lot of salons didn't make it. I'm grateful that I just stood my ground and I said, I have to stay. I can't just give up because of COVID. I have to, this is my passion. This is my life. This is my career. So we're going to make it work. So that was hard, trying to get money and trying to keep my lights on and do all the things that I needed to do without draining my income of, everything for strands. And, small businesses, it sucked because we really didn't get anything that some of these major businesses got. So I had to battle my way through that. And that was probably hard. That was really tough. Actually, it was tough for that part. And it was tough for me not being able to do what I do best, which is hair. And so it was really hard. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. And then the climb back, I imagine, is just as difficult.
Because it's still coming back. It's not, I wouldn't say that everything's 100% right now. I would say we're still like 70%. Because you still have people that are not sure, about COVID. They're not sure about, they've lost their jobs, So now the trickle down is going to hit us probably harder than COVID.
Did social media take off during that time? For a lot of people, I've heard them say that that's when they got creative and, started to get visibility in that way. What has your social media presence been like in supporting this climb, your success, your visibility?
Social media it's been really good to me. I probably could do it a lot better than what I'm doing because I'm trying to navigate it. Navigate it myself, and it's so hard to do that. So I think if I had a team of people who really took time out and focused on my social media and YouTube, which is something I'm working on now, a project that I'm working on now, just to get all of that part aligned a little bit better so I can have a better platform to help educate some of these stylists out here in the beauty world.
So you do it by yourself?
Social media right now, Instagram, I do by myself. Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yeah. So I'm a little behind. You know, I had some hurdles that kind of keep me back and forth, but I'm trying to get back on top now of the Instagram thing. But it's good when it's on. It's on. Like I get so many like DMs and people calling, making appointments, or Instagram is great. Like it's really helped my business tremendously. My wig business during COVID really took off.
Okay.
So a lot of people I met from like Philly, New York, LA, San Francisco. This lady probably bought about 5 of my wigs. I mean, people just, they love it. My wig line came to me probably, gosh, it had to be a good 25 years ago. I started out doing wigs for chemotherapy and alopecia.
Okay.
So once the celebrities started wearing wigs more and I just said, well, I'll just come out with, a creative wig line. So Shirley G Wigs is the wig line. And it's custom made wigs. Anything you show me, I can do it.
All right. So let's have some fun with this celebrity clientele then. Craziest story, wildest story of you and a client, or something that you just observed.
Oh my God. I have so many crazy stories.
Okay.
Client. Oh my goodness.
You don't have to mention any names.
I think one of the craziest stories on set when I was doing work for a publication, and it was with a celebrity. First time meeting her.
Okay.
And you get the jitters. You never know how people are going to be. Are they going to be nice to me? Are they just going to come out? They're just going to be mean. But, I just said, well, Shirley, just be you. God just says, he just speaks to me. He says, you just be you. And that's all you can do. So I just be me. So I'm saying to this lady, I'm like, oh, okay. So, I bought a couple of wigs, if you want to look at a couple of my wigs or work with what you have, just tell me what you want me to do with this look. So she looks at my wigs and she likes them. And then she's like showing me her wigs. And so I said, well, can I see what's under the wig? Do you want me to like braid it down? Or you already going to take care of that? And she was just like, oh, girl, I already have my hair plaited. It's amazing. So she just pulls the wig off and it's all these little gray plaits. But if you knew the person, I didn't expect for it to be salt and pepper when the wig is completely opposite. When you see her in the celebrity world, it's like, I didn't know that was going to be anything there, but okay. But she was a delight. She just kept saying, you got to make it big. If it's not going to be big, I'm not going to be happy. It's got to be. So I just remember like giving her the mirror and letting her see it. And she's just like, okay, yeah, I like it. And then she just went looked at her makeup. She said, there's something wrong with my makeup. I was like, oh, let me get the makeup artist for you because I don't want any parts of that. I'm going to let you deal with him and I'm going to deal with the hair part. But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, so that means that wigs are a part of people's lives so much that you don't ever see their real hair. You
don't see their real hair at all. Wow. And I don't know why. I just wanted to be curious. I saw her flipping back and forth and I'm like, what did I just see? And then when I was styling it, I was like, oh, the color is beautiful. I knew you told me that you like this color. That's why I was making some of the wigs, the same color as your hair. And she said, but I don't use color. I use Kool-Aid.
Oh, no, not Kool-Aid.
I was like, okay, well, it worked.
All right. So you mentioned some things. You said you have some goals. What's next for you?
I asked myself that over and over again, and I still want to dive into this whole world of film. Okay. Because I am very creative and I do a lot of period pieces and I know how to, I took major classes with doing hair for film and, just getting the continuity right when you're working with film and day, night, rainy day, all the things that you have to learn. And I have speed. So I know I would be amazing I just have to figure out when I'm ready for that. And I know people that I could probably sneak in the doors a little easy, but I just have to be prepared for it because I have to give up everything to do that.
All right. So this amazing success, again, I do want to talk about what life has been like for you in the past year.
Okay.
And I would imagine it's been difficult to, I don't want to say walk away from, but like we've said on the show, you know, we know about your relationship with Robin Dixon. She even shared it during, you know, she was going through it alongside you during moving. So she actually shared it on the show. So it's very difficult probably for that to remain private. So to experience it, but then have to experience it where it's amplified. Talk about that process and talk about what you've been able to do to grieve in a healthy way, but then also pull back and have your privacy when you need it.
Yeah. And you know, it's this year has definitely been rough, but this is not my first rodeo with losing a sister, unfortunately. I lost my oldest sister when she was 25 and to a car accident as well. So this is like, you know, it was so many years of space in between. Like my oldest sister would be 61 right now. She left behind a daughter and she's 36. She's about to turn 37. So when we lost her, my niece was only 2 weeks old and she was in the car with her.
Goodness.
So that I was still working at the first salon I worked at, Kelly Harem. And I can remember it like yesterday because my sister had come home from the service to have the baby. So we were sitting at my parents' house and the dining room table, which is where we always gathered. And we were just talking. And she was like, oh, I'm going to come down to the salon to, you know, see my boss, Miss Kelly at the time. And because they had grew a good rapport and, you know, so she would come in and get her hair done when she came in town. So she was like, I'm going to come. I told her I'll bring the baby. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that day, you know, I leave to go to work. She leaves to, you know, do whatever she's doing. And then she's doing a 2-week checkup for her daughter. And she comes into the salon, of course. And my sister, Linda, was my shampoo assistant at the time. And my sister, Jeanette, had just came in for me to do her hair. And she was about to pop because her and my sisters both were pregnant around the same time. So she was about to pop. She leaves the salon. And then probably my sister leaves. Everybody sees the baby. Everybody's like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. And she's gorgeous. She was a gorgeous baby. And so she leaves. So, you know, I'm just working. And then like hours later, my receptionist at the time that worked at the salon, she comes over and she's just like, Shirley, your mom's on the phone. It sounds like she's crying. And I'm like, okay. So I get on the phone and I pick up the phone and I'll never forget like her trying to tell me something. And my first reaction was the baby she said car accident. And I was like, oh, the baby died. Because I didn't say my sister died. I said the baby died. And she said, no, the baby's fine. It's your sister.
Oh my God.
And I just like, I lost it. And I lost it because the night prior to the accident, I woke up in the middle of the night. I went into the room where my sister was staying. She was breastfeeding my niece, Ashley. And I jumped up and I went in the room and she was like, what's going on? What's wrong, Shirley? And I was like, oh, nothing. I was like, I thought I heard the baby cry. But at that time, I had a dream that my sister was in a car accident and my niece. So when that dream came to light the next day, that's why my reaction on the phone to my mom was like, oh, my niece died. And she was like, no, it's not your niece. So I never thought in a million years that it was going to be my sister, you know. But that journey was probably one of the hardest journeys that I ever had to go through in my life. I was only 25. No, I was only 21. My sister was 25 when she was killed. And so we were 3 years apart. And just navigating through that whole process of healing through, faith in God, and knowing that my parents gave us this foundation. My mom kept us in Sunday school and kept us in church. And so I knew it was in me, and I knew that God was always going to be there for me. But to lose somebody for the first time in our family, that's what that was. And we all just went separate. We grieved so many different ways. And that was probably the first string that kind of pulled us in different directions of do now, because she was the oldest sister, and I had two older brothers, but she was my mom's right hand. Before she left to go into the military, she did everything. So I looked at her as a second mom growing up, and I admired everything because she went to Morgan State and she was absolutely gorgeous. And I just always just looked at her like, I want to be like you when I grow up. So pretty. You're so beautiful. You have it going on. People love you. You're a people person. Everything great. And the one thing I remember saying to her, watching her over the years with relationships and dealing with guys, is I don't want that pain, because I saw her in a lot of pain at times dealing with relationships with men. I don't want to do that. I don't want that pain. And the one bit of advice she gave me, she said, don't ever think that you have to be a certain way with what you see me doing. If you feel that God is telling you to wait for that one guy, then you wait for that one person. And that stuck in my head so much when I grew up. I was like, okay, whenever this guy comes to me, I already know it's only going to be one guy, because she said that to me, and everything she said was gold. So, but going through that loss was, I didn't know how to get out of that box. I was in a dark place, and I was walking around in a dark place.
Did you throw yourself into work? Was work the distraction? Because it sounds like this was very early on.
It was really early on. I was still working for Miss Kelly.
Yeah.
I do remember her coming to my parents' house multiple times trying to get me to come back to work. I do believe I probably sat out of work maybe a good month, maybe.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be back in that place again. So fast forward to my sister that I just lost. I knew I didn't want to go back in that dark space, but I had to keep using my faith and what I knew that God was going to pull me out of to help me to stay out of it. And it's hard because I trained Charlie. Charlie was, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
I think just like my sister was like a mother to me, I felt at times that Charlie was my child. So losing her was and is really hard. And staying strong and trying to do hair, knowing that I trained her at the salon and I started her career. And she was so good at what she did. And everybody loved her. But I know that God is going to pull me through this. And I tell people, I'm not going to live in it. I'm just going through it. But I won't allow myself to live in the grief that I allowed myself to live in when I lost my first sister.
Just sending you some hugs.
Yeah, thank you. So
you feel that you grieved differently?
Oh my gosh, yes. So much differently. I mean, I'm a lot older too.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be 58 in August. So, and then back then I was 25. So I didn't even really understand death because it was the first death that happened to our family. So like, what's going on? Like, how could this possibly be? And then to turn around and have that same accident type of thing go again.
Yeah.
And then to lose two people that were so huge in our family at one time, and to leave behind the two kids, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where are the kids now? Your niece and your nephews?
My niece, Ashley, is 37, and she's an esthetician in Beltsville, I believe. Yeah, Beltsville. She's a teenager. I'm sorry.
Did another sibling raise her?
We all kind of helped. My mom had her for the first 5 years. I still lived at home, so I was helping my mom a lot with her. And then she ended up going to her dad to be with her dad for probably about 25 or 30 years. And then she came back to me. Well, she came back to me to finish high school. So she stayed with me and my husband through 10th grade through 12th, and then we sent her to Hampton college. Yeah. But yeah, she's doing really well. She's super successful, very marketing background, so very business oriented and really a hard worker. And she's great, but it's hard for her.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, she struggles a lot with not having her mom. And people ask her all the time, like, how can you be so sad, or how are you going through such a hard time when you have so many aunts and, you know, your mother's sisters? And it's different. Like, people have to realize that even though she was 2 weeks old, she still felt her mother's presence. She knew that she lost her mom, because literally we took her back to the hospital over and over again because we kept thinking has to be something wrong, because she just wouldn't stop crying. Like, that whole week she just cried and cried and cried. It's like we were up, back and forth, pacing, walking, doing everything. And my mom was like, we're going to take her to the hospital again, because there must be something wrong. And something just clicked in me, and I'm like, no, she knows her mom is gone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She also felt the absence of. So, you know, we're grieving different things. We're not just grieving a death. We're grieving also the life change, you know, a change to our habits, a change to goals and a vision that we had. So she's grown up knowing that this absence will always be there.
It's always going to be there.
Also grieving not having a relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
Seeing it around her, maybe even in her, you know, cousins, seeing that dynamic, the mother-daughter relationship, longing for it. No, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm also interested in, you said that your family members grieved in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And that it kind of pulled some of you apart, brought some of you together. Explain that a little bit more, the differences.
Well, I think, especially when I lost my first sister, I felt like that was probably the first time that I saw everybody kind of different. Like, I mean, for the most part, we were a very close-knit family. I mean, of course, every family has their ups and downs, and you're battling when you have 12 brothers and sisters. You're going through stuff all the time. Yeah. But we were a close-knit family, and I guess, you know, it was just like the first time I had my first times of everything. The first time I saw my dad cry. The first time I saw my mom just literally go from 100% no gray to the next morning looking at her, seeing 20% gray hair. And because I was a hairstylist, that one moment of me just trying to pull myself out of whatever I was going through, I just noticed the gray in her hair. And I think I said to her, I'm like, Mom, you have a lot of gray hair in one night. And it was just the loss of, you know, her first child. And it was seeing the pain that I mean, having my niece was helpful, because I don't know if my mom would have gotten through it, because, you know, having her there and holding her and being, and she did not want to let her go. So I think that helped my mother, because she's a strong woman. I know that she gets her strength from God, but she's a strong woman, because to have to go through this again. And I was the one to go with my brother to tell my mom about this accident that just happened. I had to go to her house to tell her, and it was just heartbreaking. It was like the first thing she said was, I'm losing another daughter to a car accident again? And it was just so heartbreaking. And I think the hardest part for her was that she couldn't see her. And I think that's still the hardest part for her today, is that she could not see her before, you know, she was buried in services. She just didn't understand why she couldn't see her.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for that long, having these regrets. You know, I have this acronym that I use that helps guide people through a sense of release or completion.
Yeah.
And it's dealing with what feels like guilt.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the guilt. And what is more like a regret is that you didn't get an opportunity to see her and say goodbye. So that definitely is, not uncommon, but it's also a good way of actually working through your grief, being able to express it and have these types of conversations with her daughter in the form of a letter.
Yeah.
She can communicate.
Yeah, I did that. I had my niece do a letter thing before, with just like her abandonment, that she feels like that everybody who comes in her life is going to abandon her because she felt like that her mother abandoned her by dying. So I had her do letters before, and I think that really did help her a little bit. She's in counseling today, and that's helping her tremendously. And the boys, my nephew, the youngest nephew, is in counseling, and the oldest one will definitely be in counseling once he decides if he feels he wants it and needs it. He knows that it's there, and whenever he's ready for it.
Yeah,
I do want them to go into counseling, but I think with my mom, the fact that we did cremate both of them because after the car accident there was no way for her to see them, and I think that's what messes with her because she knew she saw my older sister and she couldn't. It's like, Mom, it's not that we don't want you to see her. You can't. There's nothing to see, so you can't see her. And I think the sadness that I saw in her eyes when she finally understood what I was saying without me having to tell her exactly. Yeah. And that was just so hurtful. It was just so hurtful. But she's strong. She's a strong lady because she sits over there on Fridays with me. She comes every Friday to get her hair done. And anybody who's sitting beside her, she's going to turn and she's going to say, "Did you know my daughter, Charlie?" So I know that it's in her. Like I know that she wants to keep talking about it because she's grieving. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did you do you've mentioned therapy or counseling for your niece and for your nephews. Was that something you explored this time around versus the second time? It sounds like you might have experienced some depression the first time.
I think I definitely had depression the first time, and I think I had depression for a very long time. But this time I did explore it, and I did talk to a few people, but I think through like just different books that people have given me, and I just listen to different like pastors and different sermons, and I'm doing like this whole Bible series on grief and healing.
Okay.
So I think that to me is better for me this time because I just know a lot more about death and over the years just being true and faithful to God and staying in the Word. I just know a lot. I'm just a little bit more wiser, and I'm not saying I understand why, but I'm still crossing that because I know it's 9 stages to grief, and I'm at the forgiveness stage, the 5th stage, but I don't know if I've released everything.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're definitely more expressive this time, that you actually sought outlets.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes the world of a difference.
Oh my God. Yeah, that makes the world of a difference. And, music, like I love CeCe Winans, and she knows what she does for people's lives. But if you don't, CeCe, I mean, you know what you've done for us. And just by her being part of the service was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And she gets me through things that, I don't even know. I'm like, oh, okay, well, thanks, CeCe. You did it again. You helped me out again, girl. But yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. Is there anything that you want to share as we started off this conversation, how you wanted to use this platform and encourage, the people in your chair to go that extra step, to do the actual self-work of expression, of emoting, of identifying their feelings, and then doing real work instead of waiting for time to heal and resolve whatever it is that they're going through. It's not always death. I understand that, but hardship takes a toll on us. That's even still. So it leads to the stress. It leads to what becomes chronic stress and weakening our immune system. And then that turning into, like we said, the mental and emotional explosion, but then also physical breakdowns.
Yeah.
So with you knowing what they're going through, with you knowing the potential damage that it can cause in all three ways, what do you want to say to people to encourage them to get the support they need and to do the work through their grief?
Well, I guess I want to tell them that you're not alone. So don't feel like that you're alone, because there's always somebody out there that's going through exactly what you're going through, and maybe much more. I feel like you have to make sure you take care of you as you go through this grief process. And I know that it's hard because you're the one that you're going to forget about. You're going to forget all about you because you're going to try to use so many things and so many outlets to bury the grief if you don't take care of it. So, I mean, for me,
it's show them you're strong.
Yeah. For me, it's God. For me, it's my faith, my family, just staying vocal about it, like feeling like letting people know, if I have a good day or bad day, or, I'm thinking about her a lot, or, there are times when me and my sisters can gather at the table and we can all talk about her. But there are times when it's like an elephant in the room, like nobody really wants to say anything because, we've gotten together several times since she's been gone, and it's different. It's never going to be that same sister relationship that we had before, because there is that person missing that, that was the light of the party or my little instigator, and we did little things together and we made everything really fun. And now I'm like looking for that person that, to help me agitate the rest of the sisters or pick on one of the other sisters, and I don't have that anymore. But I just think reading a lot of books, grieving books, and just like meditating on just the word of God, and just knowing that you're not alone. And for me, it's exercise. I mean, I take care of my body. I watch what I eat. I exercise. I do yoga, sauna, Pilates.
I love that y'all are talking together as a family, giving an opportunity for everyone to share their experiences and memories with her. What that absence feels like. I hope the boys are included.
Well, we haven't, and that's something definitely down the road we will do. But I know this will be their first Mother's Day coming up. So, and this month alone, it's like everything's kind of elevated because it is going into the year mark. And my nephew, the youngest nephew, he's very verbal, and he says exactly what he has on his mind. He quotes scriptures all the time. He's always on Instagram posting something. So he's definitely he's hurting. He's hurting a lot. But I'm so thankful that he is using an outlet to just let it out instead of keeping it in, So I think when you keep it in, which is what I did when I lost my first sister for a while, I think it made a lot of things go different in my life, I mean, I might have even pushed people away, and, you don't realize what you're doing because it's that grief that you're not letting out.
Right.
That's
and it's toxic.
A lot of things.
So it really makes things worse. We think we're doing the right thing by holding it in. Sometimes we're holding it in because we want to just avoid that it happened altogether. That we want to, pretend that we're fine. And so if we're avoiding people, then they don't see that we're not fine. And letting time get us back to a place where we feel comfortable being visible again. But all of that is toxic. And it sounds like you've recognized that the difference between how you grieved the first time around and how you're grieving this second time around.
Absolutely.
The distractions are not going to help. The avoidance is not going to help. The only thing that helps is communicating it, actually identifying what it is that you feel and expressing it. And so I love that it sounds like at least one of the boys, hopefully they'll both get to a point where they're comfortable communicating with either the therapist or someone in the family.
Yeah, for sure.
About that loss.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's. I mean, I don't really know how they feel because I'm not in their shoes, but I can only imagine the close knit family that they were,
Yeah.
how they feel. Because I mean, when I look at them, my heart goes out to them
Yeah.
because it's just like the little one. I mean, the oldest. I remember the oldest one. His first thing he asked was, "Both of them?
Yeah.
But why both of them?" And I remember that's what he said, and I was just like, I didn't have any answers for him because I don't know myself.
Did they take time off from school?
No, they didn't. They went right into
Right
school.
there?
Yeah, he went
I have
right
some
into summer program.
exercises.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me sharing them, you don't have to pass them on, but I do have some exercises specifically for children
Yeah.
and for the adults in their lives to actually do the
Mhm.
exercises alongside them.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
So I'll share those.
Yeah, share those with me for sure. Because I would love to give those to my sister Linda. Because the little one, she'll make sure that they do those together.
Okay. And it's
Because it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be something that's overnight. It's going to be something that's going to follow them for the rest of their life. Because they have to learn how to chart a whole different territory now.
Absolutely.
And learn how, like I'm trying to learn how to live a life without my sister. And I'm lost some days, so I don't really know how to do that.
Yeah.
But I'll get there.
And I love that you're actually exploring therapy this time. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. You're
transparency. I know it's difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is beneficial.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. They can find me on social media, Shirley G. Holt Hair. And they can, all of my information's on there. They're going to book appointments through a phone number that they text me for right now.
Okay.
So right now, since COVID, I'm handling my own appointments through text. So that's usually on my website and it's on all the social media platforms.
Okay. And what was
and
the
if
website?
they call the salon, then they'll also get a voice message saying call.
Okay.
Right. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your career story, those amazing highs. I've gotten to see you in a whole different light. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. You too.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
I really do see her now fully, beyond the larger than life persona and work we see on screen and in magazines. I can see how these losses have shaped and reshaped her. Shirley's grief and recovery parallels a lot of my grief framework. So, we heard the difference in how she grieved, the difference between grieving both of her sisters. So for the first sister, she went from grieving alone and progressing to depression, with that first loss, with her first sister, to then with this time, the more recent loss, exploring grief methods. We hear how they grieved as a family this time versus grieving separately the first time, which is, really seen in my family exercise where I have each family member share their feelings, their emotions, the impact of past memories of their loved one. They share them in a way so that, as a group, they have this supported opportunity to share disappointments, to share regrets, and to share those things alongside the positive memories. We heard how her niece mourns the absence of her mother and mourns the mother-daughter relationship that she never had an opportunity to experience. And this type of grief is called disenfranchised grief. It's when people don't understand. They don't fully acknowledge or understand why you're grieving, or they don't openly acknowledge or support that what you've experienced is still a loss. The absence of something is still a loss. And this is seen a lot in the Black community, actually, when we grieve things like, not having a parent present. That's something that I've dealt with myself, which people don't understand. Or
the feeling of inadequacy, or, with being poor, or with being denied an opportunity, not having children, the impact of being fired, losing that professional identity. It's being something that you've never had or experienced does still induce feelings of grief. And lastly, I want to point out, how we need to offer more grief support to our kids. Did you notice how it's expected for kids to go right back to school after losing a loved one? You heard me ask her about her nephews when they lost both of their parents. Did they go right back to school? And she said yes. So we need to ask ourselves, why is that? Adults have bereavement leave. Why is it that there's no standard, no policy for allowing a child to adequately grieve, right? So these, resilient children, we always talk about children being so resilient, so strong. These resilient children who experience loss and trauma then grow up to be adults with, autoimmune diseases, psychosomatic conditions, unexplained health problems, and compromised mental and emotional wellness, So that's where I want to leave you. I want to leave you with, what haven't you healed from? What haven't you adequately grieved and attached feelings and emotions to? So if you know Shirley and you've been in her chair and you've experienced firsthand the relief of expressing to her as a confidant, then you already know, the power of grief support and getting something out of your hair. Yes. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure you head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/the It's Marcia Cork, to enjoy the visuals of this episode. You can subscribe and be notified so that you can enjoy all of my new content, shorts, podcast episode visuals, and more as soon as they release. So until next time, MCs, bye-bye.